Hi everyone, in today's video I'm going to be talking about the psychological issues that we know of from research that might be underlying bulimia or anorexia. Whatever is underlying the eating disorder can be linked to a person's family environment where the person was growing up and also the wider social cultural environment. However, in today's video I'm going to be only talking about the family, the immediate environment where the person grew up. So normally when we talk to someone who's experienced anorexia or bulimia, they will just tell us that main reasons why they're struggling with eating, it is to do with the fact that they want to look better, they want to be slimmer, they want to lose weight. But actually from the research we know that what is actually driving the eating disorder has actually very less to do with the actual appearance, but it's more to do with the person not being able to fulfill certain psychological demands that they have developed during their childhood. So one of the reasons why the person might develop eating disorder is to do with the fact that eating disorder has actually obsessional component to them. So the person will constantly think about the food, about the weight, about the size. They will constantly plan how they're gonna eat, what they're gonna eat, whether they're gonna eat or not, how they're gonna avoid eating, and so on. So those obsessional thoughts about eating or not eating will actually occupy the person's mind all the time. So it will be very difficult for them to focus on studying or on work. It will be very difficult for them to as well maintain the current relationships, and also very difficult to develop any new relationships. So in a way, the person becomes a prisoner of the eating disorder obsessions. But on the other hand, we can also think that those obsessional thoughts about eating or not eating have actually a protective factor. So if the person is occupied constantly thinking about their food, that means they don't have time or capacity to think about the things that maybe they're really hurting them or the things that they're really worrying them. In a way, we can say that anorexia or bulimia are actually ways of dealing with difficult thoughts, feelings, or memories. And in order for you to have a better understanding what is driving your eating disorder, you can ask yourself a question: when all this started? When was the first episode of maybe your anorexia or your bulimia? And for many people, it might be quite easy to identify that it was a time when maybe my parent died, maybe my sibling died, maybe someone was assaulted. For some other people, it might be actually quite difficult to pinpoint one incident. And the reason for that, it might be that many people actually might be living with denial and saying like, oh, nothing really happened. I came out of everything unhurt. That cannot be this. And for those people, it might actually take a bit more time to actually come to terms that whatever has happened to them in the past actually is still impacting them and is causing them now to suffer from eating disorder. Others, on the other hand, they might not have clear memories of maybe certain events that has happened in the past, and therefore they might not give the significant meaning and what impact those events might still have on their current life. Some other people, they might not experience one single trauma event. It might not be the death of maybe a parent, but it might be ongoing, maybe childhood abuse or emotional neglect, for instance. And all these trauma events, whether it was one-off event, whether it was ongoing, whether it was emotional neglect, they are very closely linked to the belief that the person might be holding about themselves, about not being good enough, in context of what maybe was expected from them to be. However, whatever the reason it is for the eating disorder, it seems like all these disorders are really linked to the fact that the person is really struggling with overwhelming emotions. But then you might say that at some point or throughout our life, actually, we do deal with overwhelming emotions. So what it is that some people are more prone to develop eating disorder than others. As Julia Backward said in her book about anorexia and bulimia, The problem mainly originates in a person's or family's ways of dealing with emotions. As humans, when we feel certain emotions, we want to express them. So for instance, when we feel happy, we jump, we clap our hands, we hug people, we are happy, we have a smile on our face. And the same goes for, let's say, sadness. We want to cry, we want to maybe hug someone, and we want to tell them how sad we feel and why we feel this way. However, in some families and also in some cultures altogether, it might not be seen as appropriate thing to express specific emotions. And that goes specifically for emotions that we would refer to them as negative. And those negative emotions, they could be seen as sadness, guilt, jealousy, loneliness, anger, frustration, disappointment. However, these are still emotions and it is okay to feel them, to express them. We just been programmed to feel them, to express all of them, the good one and the bad one. But in some families, it might not be seen appropriate, for instance, for men to express sadness. In other families, it might not be appropriate for women maybe express anger. So then they need to find different ways of dealing with these emotions. For instance, in some families or some cultures, it might be more appropriate, more acceptable for men to express anger, but it might not be as appropriate for them to express sadness. So maybe when this sad event happening, the father figure in a family might suppress the sadness, might just have smile on the face, or instead maybe they will just get angry, and that then sends the message to the child that when upsetting events they happen, we suppress the emotions, we just deal with the life by suppressing it. On the other hand, we might have families where expressing anger by women might not be acceptable. So then again, the woman might need to learn how to internalize the anger, how to suppress it, don't show it, and maybe instead she will become sad. And again, that will send a message to the child how we deal with certain situations and how we then deal with the emotions in context of those situations. In some families, there might be also a pattern of actually rewarding kids or even adults for not displaying those negative emotions that I've mentioned before. And also very often in families where parents are very busy, where they're overwhelmed with their own emotions, they might not have the capacity, they might not have time to help children to deal with their own emotions. In those situations, then kids, they need to internalize it and find different ways of dealing with them. And this actually can happen to anyone at any age. When we are blocked from expressing what we're feeling in one or the other way, then we're gonna have to find some other way of expressing how we're feeling. We're gonna have to find some other way of dealing what we're suppressing, what is still within us, because we can't process it in a healthy way by speaking, by expressing it non-verbally. However, the eating disorders are much more common in younger people, and that might be to do as well with the wider social cultural aspects where the person finds themselves. But that's a topic for a different video. So for today, that will be it, and I'm gonna see you in the next one then. Thank you. Bye bye.